Today I have a little bit of a different video for you guys. We're going to be discussing what gives you that extra PSI to your boost, that E85 punch to your fuel, that nitrous oxide to your intake welds. That's right guys, power stacking. What's going on guys? I'm Nick with Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. And today's episode, we're going to be all about how to maximize the potential of your intake, your cold air intake. What intakes work well with other performance mods, and what you might consider bundling together at the checkout cart. Now I'll break this up into two different categories based upon their level of difficulty. First on our list, we'll start with the easy route. And I say easy because these are bolt-on or plug-in mods that anyone can do with basic hand tools. That's why I choose to start every build with intake and tuners. Generally, all you'll need is a Phillips or flathead screwdriver and a 10mm, 13mm socket for most applications. These two pair up nicely because if you install an air intake like S&B or AFE, they are allowing more cold airflow into your engine. And your truck's stock computer can only adjust so much for the new airflow. An intake will provide you with additional performance, but if you simply just install an air intake, your truck still thinks it has restricted factory airbox. So the airflow mapping can only be adjusted so far. So if you remap your ECU with a tuner like Bully Dog or Edge, the remapping will widen those parameters, allowing your engine's computer to now be able to adjust for the new airflow, which we all know gives you more horsepower because of the colder, denser air. You are basically allowing your computer to adjust from, say, this amount to this amount. Not only are you gaining extra horsepower over them being installed separately, you are also gaining throttle response. And in a gas or diesel turbo application, faster spool times, more turbo noise because you don't have the factory sound dampening, and who can say no to more turbo noise? All right guys, I did want to just kind of show you just a little bit of a visual reference as to what I mean when I say restricted airflow and with the mapping. So both this cold air intake and this stock intake are from a 5.3 Silverado. Now this stock intake, so as you can see, all of this is designed for sound dampening, to make the inlet quieter, and it is causing a lot of restriction. So once you get to the air box, so this is the tube that leads up to the engine. So this is your air box, and your only air coming in is through this little section here. So with your map sensor here, it's only adjusting for the airflow that is here. So when you change to a aftermarket cold air intake and you put the stock map sensor back into the aftermarket location, there's going to be a lot more airflow coming in. And with the stock map sensor, the sensor can only adjust for small parameters because this intake can only bring in small parameters. So if you just slap on a cold air intake, you're not going to get the true performance out of that cold air intake. So that's why when we pair a tuner, it's going to change the mapping. So the mass airflow sensor is going to change where it's going to allow the new airflow to come in. So your stock computer can only allow for just a little bit of airflow. So now with the new airflow, you're changing the ECU and the mapping to adjust for that new greater amount of airflow coming in with a cold air intake. Now, if you're not looking to spend the extra money on a tuner, you can pair a cold air intake with a throttle sensitivity booster, like we did with our Power Waken build. We installed an AFE Magnum intake with a Banks pedal monster. Pairing these two allowed us to get the extra horsepower from the intake, but with an adjustable, more responsive throttle. We ended up going with Banks because they offer adjustability and safety features over their competitors. Options like Bluetooth for easy monitoring or active safety. So in the event of an internal or external circuit failure, the system seamlessly returns the pedal to stock. When other devices fail, they leave the vehicle inoperable, leading to dangerous situations. Imagine losing power while passing on a 2-lane road while heading into oncoming traffic. This is why we chose to have Banks at the control of our throttle. Now to get into some more of the slightly difficult performance duos. Now, these may not be difficult for some, but it definitely makes things easier when you have a lift to operate on or a nicer socket set. I'm not talking about that set you borrowed from your dad either. That's missing the 10mm and the rest of the chrome sockets are all rounded out by an impact. Y'all know who you are. Airflow numbers and cold airflow are key for a turbo truck's performance, whether it's gas or diesel. Lower temperatures mean the molecules are more densely packed, allowing more fuel and more air and more power. So let's lump intercoolers with intakes, since an intake connects to your turbo inlet and your intercooler piping actually connects from the turbo inlet, from the turbo outlet, ultimately going to your engine. So we will lump these two together with a tuner. There are two different types of intercoolers. You can have air-cooled and water-cooled. Most of the time, diesels have a water-cooled or air-cooled, and gas engines generally just have an air-cooled. The sole purpose of an intercooler is to cool the air before entering your engine. As we know, cooler air is more dense, making it oxygen-rich. More oxygen equals cleaner burns and more power. Let's take a look at the 6-7 intercoolers for the Power Stroke from Mishimoto. Those intercoolers will generate an additional 22% greater airflow. With that additional airflow, Mishimoto claims to get an additional 40 foot-pounds of torque with no additional supporting mods. Mishimoto gains this by providing a larger intercooler and larger mandrel bent tubing to provide unrestricted airflow, all while making sure that airflow stays cool. Since turbos operate off your exhaust gas, this causes your intake temperatures to increase, hurting your performance. So with a cold air intake, upgrading your intercooler paired with a tuner, you can unlock the full potential of the new airflow and the preloaded tunes on your programmer. Plus, if you don't want to use a preloaded tune, you can always use a dyno shop and create a custom tune to load onto your tuner. Bully Dog, Edge, and SET are all tuners that support custom-built tunes. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you a little bit on why an intercooler is actually gonna be beneficial. I figured I could give you guys a good visual of what's going on in the engine bay for this 6-7 Power Stroke. So we're gonna have air in with this cold air intake here to the, it's gonna lead to the turbo setup, which is in the back here. The turbo is gonna be spun by your exhaust, that's how it's sucking the cold air in. And it is going to send it to the intercooler, which is here, which is a water intercooler. So it's cooled via coolant. And then it is gonna send the cold air into the upper intake. Now, since this turbo is wedged way in the back here, we do have a turbo that was laying around in the shop here. Now, this is a lot smaller than what belongs on this Power Stroke, but just for a visual reference here as to why you need to have an upgraded intercooler. So your exhaust gases go in here, which is gonna spin a turbine on the inside here. So as your exhaust goes in, it is gonna spin this little turbine and come out on the bottom here. That turbine is attached to this side of the turbine here, where it is gonna suck cold air in and then force it out. So with having your exhaust gas and your hot side here, it's gonna heat up that intake temperatures coming into the truck. So that's why when you send the air out, we'll send it out into the intercooler, have it cooled, and force it back into the engine. So that's why when you upgrade an intercooler, you get such an increase in power because of the cold air intake coming into the engine. Thanks for watching, guys. That's about all I have left for you today. Now remember, if you are looking to pick up any of these performance products we talked about, we will throw some links down below. Please hit that like and subscribe button and let us know down in the comments what you guys have personally paired up to get the most out of your engine.